Okay, so welcome to another deep dive, everybody.
Yeah, hey everyone.
And today, it's funny, we're talking about something that I think pretty much everyone struggles with at some point,
Yeah.
and it is staying motivated, you know,
Absolutely.
particularly when you're just not feeling it.
Right, like that initial excitement kind of wears off.
Exactly. You're all gung-ho in the beginning,
For sure.
but then, real life sets in.
It happens.
And we found a really interesting motivational lecture to
Yes.
sort of springboard off of today.
Yeah, it's a good one. It lays a nice foundation, I think.
And, our mission is to kind of extract
Right.
like the real meat
Totally.
and potatoes of this thing and like get beyond just the, rah-rah kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think what's great about this lecture is it goes beyond just defining motivation, and it gives us some
Right.
real tools to actually, cultivate it.
Yeah, that's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive Actionable Advice.
Absolutely.
So let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
The lecture starts by breaking down motivation into two core types,
Yeah,
intrinsic and extrinsic.
Yeah.
And,
it's a classic breakdown.
yeah, let's start with the intrinsic side of things.
Okay, so intrinsic motivation, that's the drive that comes from within, right? It's when you do something because you genuinely enjoy it or because it aligns with your values or gives you a sense of purpose. Like, think about that satisfaction you get when you finally master a new skill, or the joy of expressing yourself creatively, or maybe that feeling of contributing to something bigger than yourself. Those are all examples of intrinsic motivation, and the lecture actually gives some really good examples, like writing, if you're just drawn to storytelling, or running because it helps you clear your mind, or even learning something new purely out of curiosity. It's like there's something inherently rewarding about the activity itself.
Right. It's like that internal pull. You just want to do it.
Exactly.
Not because you're going to get something at the end,
Mm.
but because the experience itself is rewarding. Okay, so that's intrinsic. Now, on the flip side, we got extrinsic motivation. So what's driving us there?
So extrinsic motivation is all about those external factors, the rewards or consequences that kind of push or pull us in a certain direction. Think about things like working towards a promotion or trying to get recognition from your peers or even just avoiding a penalty. Those are all examples of extrinsic motivators. And the lecture mentions a couple others, like working hard so you can get a raise or exercising to achieve a certain physique, for a special event. Those external motivators, they can be really powerful, especially when it comes to getting started on something.
Right. So it's like the carrot or the stick.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got these two distinct types of motivation.
Yeah.
And the lectures suggest that while both are useful, the real magic happens when they combine.
Right. It's not an
Yeah.
either-or situation.
So how does that actually work?
Yeah.
How do we weave them together for like lasting motivation?
That's where things get really interesting. I think, you might start doing something for an extrinsic reason. Like, let's say you sign up for a dance class
Yeah.
because you want to get in shape.
Okay.
But then as you start going to class, you discover that you actually really love the music and the movement itself.
Yeah.
So your motivation shifts. It becomes more intrinsic as well. So now you're not just working out, you're enjoying the experience. And that overlap where the external goal kind of aligns with an internal reward, that's where you often find the most sustainable motivation.
I see. So it's like you start with the external goal,
Right.
but if you can find that internal spark along the way,
Exactly.
that's what really keeps the fire going.
And, it's interesting to think about this in terms of self-determination theory,
Yeah.
which basically says that when our needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness are met, even tasks that start off as extrinsically motivated can become intrinsically rewarding over time.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it's like you're more likely to stick with something if you feel like you're in control, you're good at it, and you're connected to others through it.
I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So we understand the different types of motivation and we're starting to see how they can work together.
Right.
But the lecture also really hammers home the importance of your why.
Yes, your why is crucial.
So why is that so fundamental for staying motivated over the long haul?
So your why is like your deeper purpose, the underlying reason for pursuing a particular goal. And as the lecture suggests, we should be asking ourselves, why am I really doing this? And what are the core values or long-term aspirations that this goal connects to? And, regularly reflecting on these questions can be super powerful, especially when you're struggling to stay motivated in the moment.
Right. So it's like when that initial excitement fades,
Exactly.
you need something deeper to keep you going.
And connecting with your why can provide that anchor. It reminds you of the bigger picture and why you're putting in the effort in the first place. It's about aligning your daily actions with your overall values and life goals.
That's powerful.
Yeah. And, when you hit a roadblock or you start to doubt yourself, remembering your why can really reignite your commitment and give you that push to keep moving forward.
I love that. So we've got the types of motivation, we've got our why.
Yeah.
Now let's get into the nitty-gritty.
Yeah.
The lecture gives us some pretty practical tips for staying motivated on a daily basis.
Yes, it does.
And I think a good starting point is setting effective goals.
Absolutely.
So what makes a goal truly motivating?
Well, the lecture is really clear about this. Vague goals are basically motivation killers.
Yeah.
Saying something like, I want to be more productive. It's a good intention, but it's too general. It doesn't give you any direction.
Right. It's like, where do you even begin?
Exactly. And that's why the lecture contrasts that with a specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goal, or what some people call a SMART goal.
Okay, so SMART goals.
Yes. So instead of saying, I want to be more productive, you might say, I'm going to dedicate 1 hour each day to focused work on my project.
Right. So you're actually giving yourself a target.
Exactly. And a way to measure your progress. And that's what makes it motivating. You have something concrete to aim for.
So it takes it from this abstract idea
Right.
to an actual action plan.
You got it.
I like it.
Yeah.
Now, the lecture also mentions breaking down those larger goals, those sometimes daunting goals, into smaller, more manageable steps. Why is that such an important strategy?
Breaking down a big goal into smaller steps can make the whole thing feel way less overwhelming and way more achievable. Instead of looking at this huge task and feeling paralyzed, you're focusing on a series of smaller actions that you can actually accomplish. And each time you complete a step, you get a sense of accomplishment, this little burst of positive reinforcement that builds momentum and confidence. And the lecture makes a really great analogy here. It compares it to climbing stairs.
Yeah.
You don't just leap to the top. You take one step at a time, and each step gets you closer to your goal.
That's a great analogy. It's about those little wins along the way.
Exactly.
They keep you engaged.
And they keep you moving forward.
Absolutely. All right, so we've got our goals broken down into bite-sized pieces.
Yep.
What's next?
Well, another key tip from the lecture is the power of accountability.
Okay, accountability.
Yeah. So having someone else involved in your goals can make a huge difference. Knowing that someone else is aware of your goals and expecting you to make progress, it creates a sense of responsibility that goes beyond just your own internal motivation.
Right, it's like you're not just letting yourself down.
Exactly, you're letting someone else down too.
Which sometimes can be even more motivating.
Sometimes, yeah, and as the lecture suggests, this could be a friend, a coach, a mentor, anyone you trust who can provide support and encouragement.
So it's like having a cheerleader in your corner.
Yeah. Exactly. Someone who's going to celebrate your wins with you and help you get back on track when you stumble.
I like that. And the lecture even recommends having regular check-ins with this accountability partner.
Yes. Regular check-ins are key.
So what's the benefit of that ongoing interaction?
So regular check-ins give you a structured opportunity to discuss your progress, celebrate your successes, and work through any challenges you might be facing. And sharing your journey with someone else can be so valuable. It can provide encouragement and perspective, especially when you're feeling a little demotivated. It's all about creating a supportive environment where you feel seen and understood in your efforts.
I love that. So we've got clear goals, we've got support.
Right.
What else is in the lecture's toolbox?
Well, the lecture really emphasizes the importance of tracking your progress.
Now, so actually keeping tabs on how we're doing.
Exactly, because seeing your progress visually can be a huge motivator, whether it's through a journal, a progress bar on an app, or just marking things off a to-do list. When you can actually see how far you've come, it reinforces the belief that your efforts are paying off.
Right. So it's not just this vague feeling of, oh, I think I'm making progress.
Exactly. It's tangible evidence.
It's concrete.
Yeah. And as the lecture points out, even just a quick note acknowledging your work can make a difference. Something like spent 30 minutes writing today. It might seem small, but it helps you recognize your effort and create a sense of accomplishment.
So it's like you're making that abstract concept of progress more tangible.
Exactly. You're bringing it to life.
Okay, so building on that, the lecture also highlights the importance of reflection.
Yes, reflection is key.
What kind of reflection are we talking about here?
So the lecture suggests taking some time to consciously acknowledge your efforts and achievements, rather than just constantly focusing on what's next. We often get so caught up in striving for the next goal that we forget to appreciate how far we've already come. So it's about pausing to celebrate your wins, big or small, and to recognize your resilience and the progress you've made.
Right, it's like giving yourself credit where credit is due.
Exactly. And you can do this by asking yourself questions like, what did I accomplish this week that I'm proud of? Or what steps did I take towards my goals? It's all about recognizing and appreciating your journey, not just the destination.
And I think that can be so easy to forget.
It really can.
especially in our, fast-paced, always-on world.
We're always on to the next thing.
Okay, so we've talked about goals, accountability, progress tracking, and reflection.
Yep.
What else does the lecture have in store for us?
Well, the lecture also talks about the strategic use of rewards.
Ooh, rewards. I like where this is going.
Yeah, who doesn't love a good reward?
Yeah. Exactly. So how can we use rewards to boost our motivation?
So the lecture explains that having something positive to look forward to can really enhance our motivation. Setting milestones and planning small celebrations when you reach them can give you that extra push to stay on track. And it can be anything you enjoy, whether it's a favorite treat after completing a challenging task or a relaxing break after a productive work session, or maybe even a bigger reward like a weekend getaway when you achieve a major goal.
So it's like you're giving yourself something tangible to work towards.
Yeah, and these rewards, they trigger the release of dopamine in our brains, which is associated with pleasure and motivation. So it creates this positive feedback loop where you're more likely to repeat the behaviors that led to the reward.
I see. So it's not just about the reward itself.
Right.
It's about the anticipation and the positive reinforcement.
Exactly. It's about creating a system that supports your efforts.
I like that. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But there's one more really important area that the lecture delves into, and that is burnout.
Yes. Burnout is a big one.
So how does burnout differ from just a temporary dip in motivation?
Yeah.
We all have those days.
Right. Everyone has off days.
But burnout is something different.
It really is. So while a lack of motivation might be a temporary feeling of disinterest, or low energy burnout is a state of chronic stress that leads to physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. It's like you're running on fumes and you've got nothing left to give.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It can be, and the lecture highlights some key signs to watch out for, like persistent fatigue,
Yeah.
a loss of interest in activities you used to enjoy, feelings of cynicism or detachment, and difficulties with concentration or sleep.
So it's not just about feeling tired.
No, it's much deeper than that. It's like a state of depletion.
So what's the key message here? What should we do if we think we might be experiencing burnout?
The crucial message is that burnout requires a different approach than just trying to power through it. When you're truly burned out, you need to prioritize rest and recovery, not just try to push yourself harder.
Okay, so recognizing the difference is crucial.
Absolutely. You need to know when to push and when to pause.
So what can we do to prevent burnout in the first place? Are there any proactive strategies?
Yes, definitely. The lecture outlines several key strategies for building resilience against burnout, and one of the most important is setting healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
Learning to say no to excessive commitments is essential for protecting your time and energy.
Right, it's like you can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And another key strategy is prioritizing rest. Getting enough sleep, making a time for downtime and mental breaks. Those things shouldn't be seen as luxuries. They're necessities for maintaining your well-being and your motivation.
Absolutely, you can't run on empty.
And another helpful tip is to integrate enjoyable and restorative activities into your regular schedule. Rather than waiting for a big vacation to relax and recharge, try to incorporate little moments of joy and rejuvenation throughout your week, whether it's spending time in nature, pursuing a hobby, or connecting with loved ones.
Right, it's about finding those little things that fill your cup back up.
Exactly. And finally, the lecture emphasizes the importance of self-care, engaging in activities that replenish your energy, whether it's reading, journaling, going for walks, or talking to someone you trust. These practices are crucial for maintaining your well-being and preventing burnout.
So it's like a holistic approach.
It really is. It's about taking care of yourself physically, emotionally, and mentally.
So we've talked about the different types of motivation, the importance of our why, practical tips for staying motivated, and strategies for dealing with burnout. But to really bring these principles to life,
Right.
the lecture shares some pretty inspiring examples of individuals who faced some major challenges.
Yes, they did.
But they persevered.
They did.
So let's start with Michael Jordan.
Okay.
What can we learn from his experience?
So Michael Jordan's story of being cut from his high school basketball team is a powerful example of how a setback can actually fuel motivation. Instead of letting that rejection defeat him, he used it as motivation to work even harder and prove himself. And it's a reminder that sometimes our biggest disappointments can become our greatest motivators.
Talk about turning adversity into an advantage.
Exactly. It's not about avoiding setbacks. It's about how we respond to them.
Right. It's that resilience.
Exactly. And J.K. Rowling's story is another great example.
Okay, so tell us about her journey.
So, J.K. Rowling faced numerous rejections from publishers when she was trying to get Harry Potter published and all this, while she was a single mother struggling financially, but she never gave up on her dream. She believed in her story, and she kept pushing forward even when it felt like the whole world was against her.
That is amazing.
It is, and it's a testament to the power of intrinsic motivation.
Oh.
She wasn't driven by fame or fortune, at least not initially. She was driven by her passion for her story and her belief in her own ability to create something special.
All right, she had that fire in her belly.
She did.
And then there's Serena Williams.
Yes, another incredible example.
What does her career teach us about staying motivated?
So Serena Williams has obviously achieved incredible success in her tennis career, but she's also faced her fair share of challenges, injuries, criticism, periods of intense pressure. But through it all, she's remained dedicated to her craft. She's constantly striving to improve, and she never lets setbacks define her.
So it's about that unwavering commitment.
Exactly. And the lecture emphasizes that her ability to come back from adversity time and time again isn't just about fleeting motivation. It's about a deep-seated passion for the game, a belief in herself, and a willingness to put in the hard work even when it's tough.
So it's like a combination of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation.
Exactly. It's about having that internal drive, but also recognizing the importance of discipline and dedication.
It's inspiring to see how these individuals, even with all their success, still face those same challenges with motivation.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we're all human.
So what's the common thread that links their experiences according to the lecture?
The lecture suggests that despite their different backgrounds and fields of expertise, these individuals all share a common ability to tap into a deeper source of motivation. Beyond just feeling up for it every day, they're driven by a strong sense of purpose, a resilience in the face of setbacks, and an ability to reconnect with their core reasons for pursuing their goals even when motivation dips.
Right, so it's not about being motivated all the time.
Exactly. It's about having that foundation that you can always come back to.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway from this exploration of motivation?
The biggest takeaway for me is that motivation isn't a constant state. It ebbs and flows. It's natural to have periods of high motivation and periods of low motivation, and that's okay. The key is to not rely solely on feeling motivated, but to focus on building sustainable systems and habits that support you even when your internal drive is wavering.
Right, it's about creating a structure that helps you stay on track.
Exactly, and it's about having those tools and strategies in place to help you navigate those inevitable dips in motivation.
So what are some of those practical reminders that we can take with us?
Well, the lecture leaves us with some really actionable steps, like when you're feeling unmotivated, start with a small, manageable task just to get the ball rolling, and don't be afraid to reach out to your support network for encouragement and take some time to reflect on the progress you've already made. Even small wins deserve to be celebrated, and don't forget to reward yourself for your efforts. Those little bursts of dopamine can go a long way. And finally, prioritize rest when you're feeling depleted, but don't give up entirely.
It's like that saying, you don't have to see the whole staircase, just take the first step.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of it. Even on those tough days when you're not feeling super motivated, taking one small step forward is a victory in itself, and those small steps, they add up over time.
Absolutely. So for everyone listening, as you think about these inspiring examples and practical strategies, I want you to ask yourself, what is your why? What is that deep-seated purpose or inner drive that resonates most strongly with you? And what's one small step you can take today to cultivate that deeper motivation and keep moving forward, even if the initial spark feels a little dim? That's your challenge from this deep dive. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone.
We'll see you next time.
See you later.
Bye.